Isn't every day a wonderful day when you're in God's hands? Look at the picture. Is God smiling down on us, or is it just nature? Or is God speaking through nature? Hi, my name is Dr. Leonard Parker. I teach at Liberty University, and especially graduate educational psychology. I want to introduce to you my learning style profile and my study skill inventory. It's based upon the scripture verses that we find. In Joshua 1:8 it says, "This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make the way prosperous," etc. Then we go to Matthew 23 with Jesus teaching, "Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do." And then in Luke 2:52, Jesus increased in wisdom, mental, and stature, physical, and in favor with God and man, spiritual and social. As we go on, we want to think about the diagnosis and prescription of learning for the student. First of all, we want to know how the student learns by finding out the learning style, then study skills, then subject content and learning diagnosis. Then what we want to do is prescribe the learning around that. Now, is this a frog? Now, don't we have different students? Possibly we're looking at the students the wrong way. Is it a frog or a horse? What kind of students do you have? You know, students have difficulties. Sometimes they have difficult reading. The place is filled with noise. They can't listen properly to lectures, and they work hard, but seem not to get anything accomplished. Well, the learning style profile is divided into modalities, interpersonal skills, competencies, personal identifier, management, and management leadership characteristics. We break it down into 6 charts: the people, data, things chart, independent, dependent chart, kinesthetic, auditory, visual chart, personality identifiers, management, and leadership style charts. In our study skills, I tried to think how many study skills are there. Well, I have chosen 16. We find these first 8, and you look at them, and then the last 8. And notice these. We include critical thinking, research, technology. All of these are so important, and even health. Well, what do we say to our students at the end of the day? Can we say goodbye and, looking at the student, realize he's had maximum learning for that day? Well, here in the Learning Style and Profile and Study Skills Inventory, we have a computer-integrated diagnostic and prescription tool for the classroom. The Learning Style and Study Skill Inventory asks the question, how would you prescribe a student's study skill method in various subject areas upon diagnosis and prescription? Well, you take the learning style and you answer this question. I learn and remember best by reading. Do you strongly disagree or strongly disagree? 1 through 5. The first one is interpersonal skills. This is taken from the U.S. Government Department of Labor. People, data, things. A things person is a person with psychomotor skills like typing, data person compiling and interpreting data, and people dealing with interpersonal skills. Then we put this in the form of a chart because they're all 3 related into that chart. And we want to also give characteristics to these different areas. We also look at the dependent and independent learner. We won't read each characteristic, but you see here the dependent learner, and you'll find it in the PowerPoint exercise, and then the independent learner. You can also see these characteristics in the PowerPoint that accompanies this audio presentation. We divide the dependent and independent also into a pie chart, and you see the relationship. Then we have the modalities, which is probably the most popular learning style: auditory, visual, kinesthetic. Again, we're not just strong in one, but we're a combination of all of them. The auditory learner has these particular characteristics. Which one is your strength? Which one is your weakness? Then we have the visual learner. You see the characteristics there. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And then we go on to, after the visual, to the kinesthetic, and notice the characteristics there. These all combine together to give the student characteristics with strengths and weaknesses. And here's what the pie chart looks like. Again, strengths and weaknesses would depend on how high that is. Getting into the learning model, I've created around Joshua 1:8. Motivation, observation, concentration, participation. Hear, see, think, do. And it's based on the Joshua 1:8 model. Again, the book of the law shall not depart out of my mouth. Thou shalt meditate therein day and night. And I've taken these key words out, observe, to do. And if you go back and look at my model, you'll see that. Hear or see, I see and hear, observation, concentration, and then doing, participation. Notice the observe here, to do. Other scripture that has references to the same idea we find in Philippians 4:9. Those things, content area, which ye have learned, think, you think to learn, and receive, and heard, and seen in me. And then in Proverbs 2, again, I won't read the whole proverb, but look at all those key words. Write Proverbs 2 down and go back and meditate on it. Listen. Look at that. Ears hear. Concentrate, think, insight, and then search. Notice that. Emphasis. Now, in our learning styles and modalities, we see how they actually fit in with the model. You start with auditory by hearing all the way to doing, participation. What's important part of our performance is the characteristics in our performance, which includes attitude, academics, and ability. All these are so very important. And notice when we add these into the model, you have to have an attitude or a motivation or a feeling of hearing, yes, I want to learn this information. And then we have a chart which is the personality identifiers. Notice the motivated action taker, combination of doing and hearing. The concerned listener, hearing and seeing. Thoughtful observer, see and think. And the active processor, thinking and doing. And notice those combinations. And as we place it on the chart, we see that we have the concerned listener. Notice how that follows the diagram. The motivated action taker, the active process, the thoughtful observer, all the way through the motivated action taker. And notice how they fit into that chart. Now, what do we want to do? We want to diagnose a student's problem. We want to find a prescription. Well, let's say we have a kinesthetic learner. He's field independent. He's a things person, and he doesn't like to read. What are we going to do with that learner? Okay, let's take a look at it. We have the kinesthetic learner. That means he's going to want to learn around movement and action. He's field independent. He wants choices. And then he's a things person. Well, he's the kind of person that likes just to be around and moving around many things. What's the solution? Give him that concept of reading around all of those areas. Then we get into the teacher-manager-student-task relationship. This is taken from Hershey Blanchard, work on, task off. If we look at these, we find that a teacher can be an exhorter, a restorer, a neglector, or an offender. Now, I know some of these sound negative, but look how they look in the form of a chart. What are the good things? Well, obviously, the good things are the exhorter and the restorer. Now, this is just telling us that we have tendencies. The tendencies might be to be a neglector. Well, in that case, we must go back and be a restorer. If we have a tendency to offend, we must be an exhorter. And this is how they look in the chart. For you as a teacher, how do they fit in? And if you want to understand these more, go back and read documents that accompany this course. And then finally, we look at a student and we say a mistake we often make in education is to plan the curriculum materials very carefully, arrange all the instruction materials, open the doors of the school, and guess what? They gave us the wrong kids. We plan hard, but we don't expect sometimes the kind of students that we get. Well, as a teacher, let me encourage you. You have different leadership and management characteristics as a teacher. Look at all of these: mentoring, managing, leading, negotiating, supervising, instructing, consulting, entertaining, and persuading. Now, all of these are have a lot of characteristics. Go back and read those in the materials. Then we put that in the chart, and notice the chart contains all of them because they're all relating to each other. Now, here we look at the different percentages, and we see strengths like consulting, weaknesses like supervising, strength like leading, and that pretty much ends the learning style profile. Thank you for being with me. Go back and look at the PowerPoint to study this a little bit more, and then we can finish out the study of